So when Dr. Pradeep, a few weeks ago when I spoke to him, he said, Dr. Meenakshi, I know this is a tough topic, but I know you will do justice to it. Just that is enough to make anybody nervous, and it made me very nervous. So until 2 weeks ago, I really had no clue what I'm going to talk. Genetic aspects in pediatric ortho are a very big topic, right? And that too, after big stalwarts, what am I going to say? How am I going to really convey anything? Then what happened, my senior fellow, Abhishek, so he came to me about 2 weeks ago and he said, you know, ma'am, I'm finishing in 2 weeks. In 2 months. Ma'am, do you think we have covered everything in pediatric ophthalmology that I need to know for practice, for my future? Then I said, you know what, Abhishek, go, get the curriculum, yeah, let's look at the curriculum. So he brought the ICO curriculum, and then we went through everything, refraction, ESO, exo, vertical, we covered, yeah. Then we came down, embryological basis. Boss, you read it from books, neonatal ophthalmology, genetics. And then Abhishek looked at me. Genetics, inborn errors of metabolism and syndromes? I said, yeah, Abhishek, it's important, very important. Ma'am, but it's so boring, ma'am. How do I read genetics? So, is it really required? I can just send it off to some geneticist. Like, where are the geneticists, boss? You're going to practice in a small town in Bihar. There is no geneticist. You have to know everything. So I said, come on, let us recall what all patients we have seen, and you learn from them. Then I said, you remember that kid with the acne? He said, which one, ma'am, that kid? Yeah, I thought it was acne, but you said, look at the distribution and rake your brains and tell me what was it? Then he said, yes, ma'am, you told me it is some adenoma sebaceum. Adenoma sebaceum, I remember, ma'am. I said, Abhishek, okay, then what did we find when we examined the patient? And he said, yeah, we did a retinal exam, and then you pointed out that there was a little whitish fluffy thing above the retina, and you called it some astrocytoma. Yes, ma'am, I remember, and we made the diagnosis of tuberous sclerosis and sent the patient back to the pediatrician who referred. I said, look, isn't that important, Abhishek, that here was a patient who came with some query acne, and you looked in the eye and made the diagnosis. So you have to know the ocular manifestation of systemic diseases in children, because many of them are actually of genetic etiology. Abhishek was starting to think, not yet convinced. He said, okay, ma'am, I'll go read up a little bit more. The next day he came back and said, ma'am, now I finally understood this autosomal dominant, and I understood all this, ma'am, and then I also understood how to draw a pedigree. I said, really? Okay. Now you tell me, what is the use of drawing a pedigree? How are you going to use it? No, ma'am. I think drawing a pedigree and finding out what type of inheritance is it is important to counsel the patient for both prognosis and family planning. Like the same family that we saw, ma'am, the tuberous sclerosis patient, such bad seizures the child was having. The parents were really, occupied with the child's health, running from pillar to post. They were even saying, we don't want to have a second child. So I found out, ma'am, that this disease, autosomal dominant with variable expressivity and penetrance, and may, affect the second child also. So I will be doing them a favor that, tell them maybe you should not think very carefully before you have a second child. So I said, okay, now you know the importance, Abhishek, go draw pedigrees, okay? Learn to draw pedigrees. Then he said, then I said, okay, all that is very good. Next day he came back running. He said, ma'am, I even found out a little bit more about this. I found out that the problem is in two proteins called hamartin and tuberin, and apparently these are on chromosome 9 and chromosome 16. Yeah, so I said, oh, that's very good, very good. So locating the mutation is the next step, right? Okay, and so for that we are going to work closely with the geneticist, right? So now I help them identify the disease, then next we counsel the parents, then now we are going to work closely with geneticists. And then he said, next day he got even more excited. He said, ma'am, I even found out what is the treatment being used for tuberous sclerosis, ma'am. I believe it's something called mTOR inhibitor everolimus, and it actually reduces tumor size in the brain and kidneys. I found out these kids are very, very susceptible for tumors, and this has really changed the way we treat the patients with tuberous sclerosis. And then I was going to get a little mischievous and ask him, boss, what is this mTOR? And then I myself looked it up and it said the mammalian target of rapamycin is a cytoplasmic serine threonine protein kinase. I said, okay, maybe I will be nice to him. I will not ask him. It's okay. Here is a boy who's just getting interested in genetics, finding out the importance. Maybe I won't put him off. All right. Then he realized one thing, that yes, treatment with this particular drug has made actually life easy for these parents and the child. It has improved the quality of life. Now Abhishek was slowly getting convinced. Then he said, then I said, okay, like a good teacher, I gave him more homework. I said, okay, you're going to go and give me the list of genetic diseases that we as pediatric ophthalmologists need to pay attention. When you see a certain disease, how do you know it's likely to be genetic? So he, like a good fellow, came back with this list, APOS Genetics Task Force list. So if you see the following, think that these could be of genetic etiology. Congenital infantile nystagmus, congenital developmental cataracts, congenital juvenile glaucoma, albinism, high myopia before preschool age, ectopia lentis, low vision or legal blindness without a known cause, retinoblastoma, as we heard, and retinal dystrophies, particularly LCA. Then it was time for Abhishek to ask me questions. He said, ma'am, when I am sitting, on an independent OPD, these parents of all these classes, children, all asking, what are the chances my second child will get? What are the chances his child will get? They're all worried all the time about this, ma'am. What do I tell them about hypermetropia and myopia? After all, that is what is common, right? Then both of us together looked it up. So really, genetic studies have not yet defined molecular pathways and preventive interventions, and the predictive power of current genetic data is limited. But however, we all know from several studies that having a single parent or two parents significantly increases the risk of myopia. So you tell such parents, yes, get your second kid screened very early, within a few months of birth. What about farsightedness, hypermetropia? So we went and looked it up in the genetics home reference, where it says that the risk of developing this condition is greater for first-degree relatives of affected individuals as compared to the general public. So that is what you tell them, Abhishek. Tell them, yes, if you've had a first child with myopia or hypermetropia, and you yourself are myopic or hypermetropic, the incidence, the chances of a second child developing refractive error is significantly higher. Then we started wondering, but what about strabismus and squint? What is known? So then the eager Abhishek came again and said, ma'am, I found out that comet and strabismus really not much is out there, ma'am. I found that some family studies said that there was a locus on chromosome number 7, but DRS1, that is Duane's retraction syndrome 1, multiple cases has been linked to 8q12 and q13. Then I said, all right, now that we are talking about DRS and CCDD, you tell me, Abhishek, who is this lady, the nice smiling lady? She has done a lot of work in genetics of eye movement disorders. And Abhishek, of course, didn't know, and so I had to scold him. And I said, this is Dr. Elizabeth Engel. She has devoted her life to the study of congenital fibrosis of the extraocular muscles, CFEOM. And so Abhishek had to do this homework, that CFEOM, which is a congenital non-progressive ophthalmoplegia, typically with severe limitation of vertical gaze, etc. And he fortunately recalled that we had seen a case just like this in the OPD of 3 generations with CFEOM. And then I said, do you remember the genes? And good for him, good boy. He remembered that it was KIF21A and TRP3 and FOX2A. And then KIF21A, a fascinating gene, and there may not be time to go through it, but basically the release of autoinhibition, which directs the microtubules to a certain direction. Now everything goes haywire, and the neurons do not go where they are supposed to go. That's pretty much what it is. But you can save lives too. So I sent him to Pukhraj. I said, go find out how you can save lives. Then he came back and said, yes, ma'am, I finally understood hereditary retinoblastoma. Dr. Pukhraj also shared with me that there was a case where of a parent with a young child, and they did the screening very early and were able to catch the tumors and then treat it with adjuvant therapy and chemotherapy and actually save the eyes. And I'm very impressed, ma'am, that genetic knowledge can actually save lives. But what is the future? But what is the point, ma'am? There is no replacement therapy. There is nothing. Then I really scolded Abhishek. Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten Luxturna, which is the adeno-associated virus vector-based gene therapy? That is for RPE65 gene mutations. And then Abhishek now felt a bit shameful that he had forgotten that. So finally, Abhishek, my fellow, and I understood the importance of genetics for a pediatric ophthalmologist. Now, I take this opportunity to invite you to these conferences from Shankar Nethralaya, the Cataract Catalyst, and the Intraocular Tumors Conference, and the Elite International Vision Science and Optometry Conference. And thank you for your attention.